Hi, and happy Monday. I'm Janet Leonard with Virtual Instructor. And every Monday, I do a live 15-minute broadcast on some sort of tip or trick with Word, Google Docs, website, things like that. So today, the topic is about Microsoft Word headers and footers. And I'm going to hopefully show you some little tricks you might not have known about and some ways to not get frustrated when you're working with headers and footers. Now, before we do that, I'm going to pop over to our website. And in case you want to know any of our upcoming topics, then you can go to virtualinstructor.com and Monday Live Calendar Topics. So I'm going to pop over there and you can see today we're talking about Word headers and footers. And next week, I'm going to talk about if you're a Microsoft Windows user, some little known tips and tricks using the clipboard option. So if you don't know about these, they'll actually save you a tremendous amount of time. And then the following week, if you're a Canva user, I'm going to show you how to go into Canva and create videos. So enough of that. Let's pop into Microsoft Word. So I am going to start out with just a blank document to show you some tricks with headers and footers. And then I downloaded something from Gutenberg Press so we can put in some other types of headers and footers. Alrighty, if you've ever watched any of my lives where I do something with Word, I use this little trick. It's called an Easter egg. You type in equal RAND, open and close parentheses. And then when you hit enter, Microsoft gives you some paragraphs of text to play with. So that makes it kind of nice to not have to type this in if you're testing something out. Alrighty, so let's say we decide we want to put a header or footer in here, right? So the long way is to go up to the Insert tab and then go over to either header or footer, click on the little drop down, and then go all the way down to Edit Header or Edit Footer. That pops you in there. I'm going to choose Close Header and Footer because that's way too much work. So the shorter way is to just move your mouse pointer into the header or the footer and then just double click. And then that pops you right in there. So that makes it a little bit easier. Now, let's say in this case, we want to have a footer that has a page number. So I'm going to pop down to the footer and I'm going to move over on the ribbon. You'll notice I'm in the header and footer. By the way, unless you're in header and footer, you won't see this. So then I'll go to this thing called page number, and I'm going to insert a page number at the bottom of the page. There's a lot of ways to do this, but this is a super easy way. And I'll just choose plain page number at the bottom. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and close out for a second, and I'm going to go into the view and go to page width so you can see this a little bit better. So there's our page number, right? Okay, I'll go back to the one page view so you can see it. Now, what if I want to have another page? So then if I want to keep with the current formatting and the current page numbers and things like that, then all I can do is hold down the control key and press the enter key, which gives me a page break. And if I do that, that moves me to another page. And I'm just going to type in equal rand, open close parentheses. Now we have two pages, right? So now I'll go to, in the view tab, I'm just going to go to multiple views so you can see both the pages. And you see we have page 1 and page 2. Now here's a little trick for you. I'm just going to double click, and I can go in either one of these, but I'm going to double click in the footer, and I'm going to go ahead and change the view so you can see it a little bit better. In the footer, I'm going to hit the space bar and type of space because I would like to know the total number of pages in this document. So what I can do is go up while I'm in the header and footer. I got to go to that tab. There's something called quick parts. You'll find quick parts other places too, but when you're in a header and a footer, this is an easy way to go. Click on that drop down and go down to field. When you click on that, don't get overwhelmed. There's a whole bunch of fancy fields you can do, but go down to near the P, but it's just above in number of pages. So if you click on that, and then you can choose whatever format you want. We'll just keep with the default, and I'll choose OK. Now I have page 1 of 2, and then if we scroll down, you'll see we're on page 2 of 2. So that's kind of cool. If you didn't know about that, that can kind of speed things up. Now I'm going to close out of the header and footer, which puts us back into our document. And just so you can see what's going on, I'll click on multiple pages. And here we have page 1 of 2 and page 2 of 2. Now here's where it gets a little tricky. What if I decided I wanted to have like a little table of contents? So if I just put in a regular page break, then, and I'm going to show you what happens, then I can run into some potential little problems. So you can do Control Enter as a page break. If you're a Mac person, it would be Command Enter. And then the other way you can do that is if you go up to the Layout tab and you go to Breaks. Now, if you notice that, it actually has the top part is called Page Break, and you've got Page Break, Column Break, Text Wrapping. And then you have something called Section Breaks. And the section breaks are where we get a lot of our power, where we can really change what's going on in the header and footers. But we'll start out with the page break, which is the equivalent of holding down the Control key or Command key and hitting the Enter key. So I put a page break in, and now we have 1 of 3 pages. See that? So now I'm going to go back up into the header. And in the header, I'd like this first page to say Table of Contents. I'm going to type in Table of Contents, but notice that it's showing up on all 3 pages. I don't want that. I only want it on that first page. So this is where people get really frustrated with headers and footers, because then you go to the second page and you're like, I want to get rid of that. So you select it and you delete it, and it is deleted everywhere. That's because currently there's no break between one page and another. And when we put a break in, it's called a section break. So right now, whatever you put in any one of these headers is going to show up on all of them. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the Home tab. And on the Home tab, you'll see there's this little paragraph thing. So if you haven't seen that before, that's called Show Hide. And it shows you we've got a page break here and a page break here. So I'm going to come over to this page break, and I'm just going to double click to get out of header and footer, and I'm going to get rid of that. So now we're back to just 2 pages, right? So here's the trick. We have to go back up to Layout, and we go to Breaks, and you want to choose Section Break next page. As soon as I do that, notice it says Section Break, and then it's got a page break. So if we go back into the header and footer, I'll just double click. Now it looks a little bit different. Notice it says Header Section 1, Header Section 2, Header Section 2. So watch as I type in Table of Contents. It's still, I'll just put Contents. Okay, it's still showing up everywhere. That's because even though we put a section break in, which you might think of as like a little fence, like, hey Excel, keep everything on one side of the fence, and then on the other side of the fence, I want to format it differently, right? So a section break is like a little fence. Problem is, right now in header 2, see how it says same as previous? So what we want to do is click over in any one of the headers in section 2, and notice that there's this little thing called link to previous. So all you have to do is turn that off. And now notice that header section 2 is not linked to header section 1. So now if we go over here and just put in headers and footers, notice that it is not changing what's over on the other page. So the thing is, you have to have a section break, and then you have to tell it it's not linked to the previous section in order to have different text in your different headers. But notice down in the footer that we've got footer section 1, footer section 2, and footer is same as previous. So if you don't want those to be the same, you've got to turn that off as well. Now, if I click over here, notice that I've got linked to previous. So maybe in the table of contents, I don't want to have a page number, but when I start the body of the document, I do. So in footer section 2, where right now it says same as previous, I'll click this to say I don't want it to be linked. And now it's not linked. So if I go back over to the footer in section 1 and delete it, notice that it left the information in footer section 2. But you might notice there's a little problem here. I really want this to be page 2 of 3. So So I'm going to change my view so you can see this a little bit better. So here we are in the footer on page 2, and I really want that to say 1 of 2. So here's where I'm going to show you some little tricks. First of all, we'll select the number 2. And by the way, when you click on it and you select it, notice how it's gray. That clues you in that that is not something somebody typed in. It's a field that Word will update depending on whatever changes you make in your document. So I've got that selected. And on the header and footer, by the way, you can right click as well. But on the header and footer tab, there's this page number. I can go down to Format Page Number. When I click on that, notice it's got the format I like, but I'm going to tell it to start at page 1. Or excuse me, yeah, start at 1. And then watch how it says 1 here. Now, the problem is when we put this special little field in, we said number of pages. The number of pages field says the number of pages in the entire document. But what we really want are the number of pages in that section. We don't want to include that table of contents, right? So I deleted it. We'll go back to the quick parts, go back to field, and I'll scroll down because I happen to know it's in sections. Notice it has section pages. And we'll choose OK. And now we have page 1 of 2. So if I go back up to view it as multiple pages, notice our table of contents doesn't have anything. And when we start what we'll call the body of our document, we've got page 1 of 2 and page 2 of 2. So hopefully that gives you some little ideas on how you can use section breaks and then be able to use those special fields. So I'm going to show you one more example so you can kind of see it another time. So what I did was I also went over to Gutenberg Press, which is where you can download books and things that are out of copyright. And I just downloaded this book. I haven't read it or anything like that, but it's called the Treasure Trail. So let's say I'm thinking I'd like to kind of format this a little nicer. So maybe I think at this point, I really want the treasure trail to be on another page. And I don't really plan on doing anything different for the header or footer. So I can just do a plain old page break, which is just Control Enter. I'm going to turn this little show hide on so you can see. There's my page break, right? Okay, then I'll turn it off because it's a little annoying. Then I'll go over to the contents. And in this one, I'd like it to actually have its own little page number. So instead of doing a page break here, I'm just going to go up to Layout, Breaks, and this time I choose Next Page. So it acts like a page break, but it also puts that little section in there, that little divider, which you might think of as like a little fence, right? And then for this part here, I want that to have its own kind of header and footer and page numbering. So I'll go back to break and choose next page. So now if we go into the header and footer, notice that we've got header section 1 for these 2 pages. And then we have header section 2. And right now it's linked to header section 1. So whatever I type in, either one of these is going to show up. And then if we go down, we've got header section 3, and it's also linked, same as previous. So if I put something in here right now, and I'll just put in book. I'll keep it nice and simple, right? Book is all here in section 3, but it's also showing up in section 2, and it's showing up in section 1 because they are all linked. So basically, if I want this not to be linked to the previous one, while I'm in this section, I happen to be in header section 3, then I will turn off that link. Now, if I go back up to the second one, right now it says book, but I'll change that to table of contents. Okay. So notice that the one that's not linked didn't change. The one that's still linked, it's linked to the previous. So what I'll do while I'm here is I'll turn off the link, and then I can go back over to this one and delete it. So now in the first 2 pages, I don't have anything. Second page, I have table of contents. Notice it's section 2. And in the third one, section 3 is not linked. So it's not the same as previous, and I have book. So you may need to watch this a couple times if you're brand new to headers and footers, but this can give you a little idea of how to set that up. Now, last thing I'll show you is We'll also put a page number, and I'll put it in the header, so it's kind of in the same area. So in the first 2 pages, I don't want any page number. The third page is the table of contents. I want it to be page number 1. So I'll do an insert, and I'm just going to insert it over at the far right. And then notice it comes up as a 3. And it did wipe out my text, so I have to put that back in. Then I'll just go back up to here, and I'll format that as Roman numeral, and I'll tell it to start at page 1. And so now I've got a little Roman numeral. I'll change the view so you can see it. So you can see it's got a little Roman numeral. Now I'll go to the next page, and in this one, and then I can just put in back type in here. I'll just hit enter and put in table. Well, I'll just put TOC, and I'll just tell it to align it on the left. Okay. All right. Now this one, I'll just save time and hit enter, come back over here, go back and insert a page number. And this will be the last thing I show you. I'll insert a page number, but notice it says it's page 2, right? So I'm going to select it, go back to page, and go back to format. And I'll say, I want it to be Arabic this time, but I want it to start with a 1. By the way, if you ever do this and you try to, it keeps coming up with a 2 and you try to change it to a 1 and it doesn't work, the way you fool it is you put a 0 in. So I'll choose OK, and now we have that. So hopefully that gives you a few ideas on how you can do headers and footers. And if for some reason you would like to learn more, we actually have, I'll just minimize this. We actually have some classes in Word. So I'm going to pop over. If you go to our Word classes, we have 33 one-hour classes that are led by a real instructor, kind of hands-on like this, so you can ask questions. And if you're looking for headers and footers, you'll go to our Series 300, and you'll see we have quite a few classes. If you want them all, you can buy the bundle and you save. But otherwise, you can go to this little button here. It's our a la carte. And then you can see the different classes. So we have a couple that just happened, but if you want headers and footers, we have one coming up on March 24th. And we have 2 levels, headers part 1 and headers part 2, because there's a lot of little tricks that we can show you. So thanks so much for coming to or watching our Monday Live and all about headers and footers. And next week, by the way, I'll be talking about some tricks using the clipboard feature in Windows, which you can apply to pretty much any program when you're in Windows. So it's pretty slick. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you next week. Bye.